Hello everyone and welcome to TranquilMentor. I'm Carolyn, a registered nurse and your creative wellness coach. On our channel we blend creativity, self-care, and emotional healing through art. Today we're diving into creating this Halloween fake bake with a glass mug from Dollar Tree. Whether you're here to de-stress, create, or simply find a moment of calm, you're in the right place. We will be using some items from Dollar General as well. And I've got my Fast and Final from DAP. It's a lightweight spackle, and I use that mostly because it stays nice and white and it always keeps well and it's nice and fluffy. And I'm just going to I wanted 3 layers of color in this mug, and I tried painting it and it just really didn't stick very well and it wasn't very easy to deal with. So I decided just to use this spackle, and this bottom part is just marshmallow. It's supposed to look like the marshmallow, and I'm taking my brush. Sorry I'm off screen a little bit, but I'm just putting the marshmallow fluff in the bottom, and I'm going to end up stacking this. And it does take this bottom layer here a few hours to dry. I think I let it dry about 3 or 4 hours, but I was just working on something else. So I like to get that white part stacked really well so that it dries. And now for our second layer, we have just some regular brown paint, probably from Michael's, and it's just the color brown. And I'm taking the spackle and mixing it with the brown paint, and then I'm what I would call stacking this on. And I'm just using the edge of that white and taking my brush and stacking it on. And that's going to be our middle layer, which would be our chocolate, so to speak. And this, when it first comes on, when you put the paint in, it does make the spackle a lot thinner than the white part. But later on, it will, as it dries a little bit as you're going around, it will dry to where you could get a second coat on there. Even just while you're working on it, it will start drying up. And I wouldn't say it's very, very dry. It's just so that you can stack it. And then here, I've made this color here. I've mixed a lot of paint with it. Oranges, yellows, beige. But there's a paint Apple Barrel Classic Caramel that's at Walmart. That would work really good. And then there is a color golden brown, light golden brown at Michael's. That would work really great too. I had to put a lot of colors together. But I just waited for that brown to dry. And then I'm just putting what would be my graham cracker color on top. And then we can just look at it from the side view. And I just really like the way that looked. I feel like it gave the cup some color, and it wasn't just one color, which would be fine. And we're going to get ready to make our ghosts here. I've got this clay, and this is just a stamp pad that I'm using. And I got the clay from Dollar General. You can get it from Dollar Tree also. I think they have Model Magic still. And this is just the white clay. And I'm making this kind of in a teardrop shape. And I get a lot of this education really from Joanne Barandi's channel. I watch her quite a bit, and she made these little ghosts, and I just love them. And I've got a little curly Q on top, and I'm just making this teardrop shape for pretty much everything. And then as I get that curly Q, they're going to be sitting on a log, and one has to face the other, so that's why I'm switching that the other way. And that's going to be where they sit on the log on the bottom. And then on the top, I want them to have also a little curly Q as well. So we're just getting the shape here, and it's really not that bad. At first I thought, oh, this is going to be really difficult to sculpture. And so I'm just pulling the little top piece so we can have a little curly Q up top. So we'll have 2 curly Qs, and then we're going to leave the face kind of big there so that we can put little facial features on there. And then I'm just taking everything and pinching it and curling it the way that I want. And then we'll have 2 of these. I'll make a second one, and then they'll be facing each other. And then next what we'll do is we're going to make a little thin snake. And I'm using my little acrylic stamp pad again. And then I made little arms, and I'm going to have them holding marshmallows. So I want to put little arms on them so that they can hold the marshmallows over the little campfire. And I'm just, not going crazy with it. I'm just trying to get them to where they look kind of the same length and just patting them on. And that was about it, really. I tried not to go crazy with length and all that. I just kind of eyeballed it. And now we're going to make the face. So I just took my daughter and we're making little eyes. And what I'm going to do with the eyes is I have black seed beads and I'm going to put them in there. And I've got another daughter, so I'm going to go in and make the mouth. And it's going to be like, the boo mouth, like, ooh. Don't know how to show you that unless you just see it. And then now we're going to take some little glue because we need some little glue in there. And that's Aleene's glue. And it's the Aleene's tacky glue. And then I'm just taking the tiny daughter and I'm taking my little black seed beads and I'm making the eyes and pressing them in. And then we've got little black eyes just with the beads, and that makes it really cute. And then this is from Dollar Tree. It's just this kind of neon pink, their 3D paint. And then where I made the mouth, I just put that little paint in and I'm just going to mix it around a little bit. So that was a little pink mouth. And I'm using my daughters for everything. And I do have the marshmallow sticks that I made. And they're made with black clay and some wire that I had and some of that clay. And now I'm making the logs that they're going to be sitting on. I had some black clay brown clay forever. It was from Michael's. And I believe it's Model Magic, but it's in that yellow bag there. And what I did was just rolled these logs out, or a snake, and then I'm taking a toothpick and I'm making a little bit of texture so it looks like a log, and I'll paint these later. But here I'm just repositioning how they're going to hold everything. And now it's time to make our campfire. So I made another snake with that brown clay, and it is Model Magic, and it lasts forever. I mean, I've had that a long, long time. And then I made my little logs, and I just measured them out, and I didn't even measure them. I just kind of eyeballed them. And then when I cut them from the snake that you see there, I just re-rolled them just to get them a little bit more. And what I'm doing is positioning these in a circle because we're going to put the fire on top. And now we have we're going to take yellow. This is the fire part, and make another teardrop with a little curly Q at the top. And the yellow is going to be the center of the fire. And I'm using that little yellow marshmallow thing just for height because I already measured it on the mug. And then I'm going to take some orange because I want to wrap the orange outside of the yellow, and it'll start to look like flames. And really all I did here again was more teardrop shapes, and then cut some off and then flattened them out just to get the shape of a flame, and then a little curly Q again at the top of there. So all the shapes are basically the same, they're just put in different ways. And then I'm just going to mold them around this part of the little fire, and we'll keep going around and making the little pieces. And then now we've got our red. That's clay from Dollar Tree from a while back, and it's just their Sesame Street red, I think. And then I went around here, I did the same basic thing with a larger teardrop shape, and then I put them all around the fire. Later you'll see too that I put glitter on them. And then the larger pieces will be the red part of the fire, and then I'm just layering at them and pulling the ends out, making more curly Q's on the ends of those too, so that they look like they're an active fire. And I tried to get them kind of all looking like they were going in the same direction of, how the wind blows. But then there we have it. I just love that. And then I'm flattening the bottom so that it does stay onto the little logs. And it really doesn't matter because they're going to glue anyway. And then I've got my Aleene's tacky glue, and I'm using that and just getting a little bit on the end, and I'm going to glue them onto the logs. If the logs are wet, they'll still stick on. The clay will stick on anyway, but I like the Aleene's glue. And then I 3D printed this little graham cracker cookie cutter, and I wanted to make a graham cracker or some more popsicle. And so I cut out I made a color of what would look like graham cracker with white clay and brown. And then now I have my center. And instead of doing a marshmallow, I'm just going to make this center white. And what I have to do with my clay is I've got to put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes. And then it will come out really good. And it will, hold the shape. And then I just put some little dots in there. And I used my daughter to like cut down the middle. And then I've got my Aleene's glue again. I'm going to take that middle piece, which would be our marshmallow. And then you just sandwich it down and you make sure that you push onto there. You push it onto each other because it'll have little gaps. They can always be filled in with glitter and slick, but I just tried to get it to where they stay close to each other, or they're sandwiched in basically. And then we've got our white. And then I just thought maybe it needed a little bit of texture. It would have been good if maybe my clay was a little bit lighter. So I just went through and tried to lighten it up a little bit so that it looked a little bit more like a graham cracker. Then I found some brown slick at Michael's, which I have been using like crazy. I usually use the glue, the hot glue. And when I found this, I just figured it was so easy to work with and just much more affordable too, because you can put a coupon on it and everything. And, as long as Michael's has the coupon, or wherever you buy it from has a coupon, and then it's a lot better. And then I'm just taking this, what would be my chocolate, my melted chocolate, all around with my brown slick. And I love the way that looks. And then I could see my paint mixture here. And what I'm doing is I'm painting the end of the logs just with a bunch of colors, as you can see on my palette here. And I'm just trying to make a little swirl at the end of the logs so that they look like logs, so that you can actually tell what they are. And then I'll go through and I'll highlight some of those texture marks that I made. And just little by little, it's starting to look real. And I love it, love it. And then now I'm going through with some Mod Podge, and I want to put a little bit of yellow and orange glitter on so that it looks like it's lit up. And I didn't want to light up clay because I didn't think it would be a very safe thing to do. And I can put lights around it and everything, but I thought the glitter would actually make it look like it was a real fire. And then I have some orange, and I'm putting that. I painted the Mod Podge on the orange clay, and then I'm going through with that little bit of glitter that I have. And then what we'll do after that is, I don't show this on camera, but big chunky red glitter. And then I made this caulk mixture with paint, caulk, and Mod Podge. I really don't know what the mixtures were because I had seen Cindy from Peep This Y'all do it quite a few times, but I just didn't know the consistency, so I just kept kind of mixing in until I got what it looked like was a dip. And then here we've got our mug, and this is not my favorite thing right here to use, this foam, but it's what I had laying around. And then I just cut down a toilet paper roll, and I'm going to hot glue that into the bottom of the mug. And that dummies up the bottom so that you don't have to fill it up with all kinds of things. And it saves some money too. And then I just measured out and I kept cutting my foam until it fit in. And I wanted foam up top there, and then I wanted half of this circle too, because I felt like I was going to stick signs in on the side and everything, so I wanted that styrofoam there instead of just making like a how you would say I'm trying to think of the right wording. If you just put cardboard, there, it'd be hard to stick the signs into. So, and then I've got my spackle out again, and this is the part where we do our whipped topping. And I'm just emptying it into a cup that I usually use. And then I've got a Wilton bag. And I'm going to use that to do our whipped topping. And I'm just going to pull this up. And usually what I do with this bag is I do reuse it a few times. And we're going to go around the outside just the very, very outside of the mug. And I have that white foam in there because this way you won't see through as much. So the foam will camouflage the spots that I miss. And I didn't make enough here, or I didn't put enough in. I'm not used to these really large mugs, so I went back in and put a bunch more into my Wilton bag. And then I'm going to finish this part up, and I'm just going around and around. And we're just going to come to the center and make a nice little dollop. And I love that. It just looks good enough to eat with no calories. And now we're going to start topping everything off. I have a skewer stick that I cut up, and just have to be really careful with this part that you don't come out the side. And then I've got my clippers here, and I want this fire in the center. And I'm going to put that in and just gently put it into that foam ball there, the half foam ball. And then our little guys are going to go right here. We have the girl and the boy. She has a little bow. And then I'm taking a skewer stick again, putting it through the bottom very gently. And they're dry. I've let them dry for probably 3 or 4 days. It's just so much easier to work with them when they're very, very dry. And then I'm going to stick that down in there and have him facing out towards you so that you could see towards the front of the mug. And then we'll put the other one in too and just stick the stick through the log. And this is our girl. And there she goes. And she's got her little marshmallow. And I put a little brown paint on the marshmallows so that they look toasted. And we'll just get them positioned the right way and sort of so that they're facing out at you so that you can see them. And then we have our popsicle, and I did some white slick for drizzle as well on there. And I did a little bit more brown, and then I had some sprinkles and I put those on just to dress it up a little bit. And then I 3D printed these little hearts and cut them out with a hole punch. I just made a little thin circle. And then this is old dried up clay, and I had some clay that just dried up, so I took it and I colored it, and I'm putting that down just as little pieces so that I can use them for my sprinkles. I like to try to make my own sprinkles as much as I can instead to keep buying them, and I just try to use what I have around the house. And then I painted them another graham cracker color, and I put the brown in a baggie, the brown dried up clay in a baggie, and tore it all up, and then I put beige paint in it, and then that made the little graham cracker looking things. And then I'm just repositioning the little ghosts here so that they are positioned the way towards us. And that bow that I have there, that is ribbon from Dollar Tree, and Dollar Tree had the gingham ribbon, and they had this orange ribbon. Very, very nice quality, and it was real easy to work with. And then I've got some little additional pieces. I've had some chocolate pieces that I make, and I pre-make a lot of stuff, and those chocolate pieces really come in handy. And then we'll get a little spot for our sign back here. I have a sign that I made, and I'm just going to be positioning that in. That's on one of those sticks that you put apples on after you dip them. And I just painted it with sort of like a watered down acrylic brown paint. And then I'll position my sign here, and then I'll just take some we'll take some hot glue and put that on there. And that'll help position that, or that'll help hold it so we don't have to stand there and hold it. And I am holding it in place just to kind of get an idea. So here, what we'll do is we'll finally make that decision and get the hot glue out and put the hot glue on the stick, and that will hold it in place. And that sign, when I made it, I layered it with craft book or scrapbook paper, and then I used some triple thick on it. And that will keep it stored. It keeps it kind of waterproof, and it gives it some dimension. All right, and there we go. That sign's just going to look fantastic. And then I didn't think about it at this time, but that orange bow, I'll glue that on there later. The orange bow that I pre-made. And I'm just positioning this just to get it just right. And there's usually, for me, a front of the mug and a back. And I have that popsicle, the s'mores popsicle, to the back. And then as I find more sprinkles, I'll be taking those and putting those on. And then in this bag, I have some 3D print filament. It's just the filament. And it is the wooden one, the wooden color. And I cut those up. If I have any left over, I usually, from my 3D printing, what I'll usually do is I'll just cut the piece up. And then that uses those and gets use out of those, so I'm not keep buying sprinkles for every color. And some of the filament I can actually color it. If it's white or clear, I can color the filament and just cut it up with my little nippers, and then that'll make sprinkles. So it's just another way of using what you have around and not having to continuously keep buying different color sprinkles, and just try to make them yourself as much as you can. I did do at one time the polymer clay sprinkles, and that's okay too. That works out good, but it's a whole baking thing and everything. And this is just a lot faster, and I have a lot of different colors on hand already. So I'm just taking them and just placing them just through wherever I think I want them. And little by little, we'll just go through and get that just right. And I keep them in that plastic bag so that I always have them. Here we have it. Here's our fire. I put some red glitter on it to make it look like it was really burning. And we have our two ghosts toasting the marshmallows, and little toasted marshmallows with brown slick on them. A little bit of brown paint on the edges to make things look toasty. And they're sitting there on their two logs. We've got chocolate bites in there. We have our popsicle, our s'more popsicle with sprinkles on it. And I love the way that bow came out with the little bottle cap and the ghost in there. So awesome. I'm so excited about how all this came out. And I love the way that the mug came out too, the differentiation of color. It really gives it some dimension. Absolutely beautiful. I've always wanted one of these, and I'm so excited at the way that it came out. I love it. If you make a Halloween s'mores fake bake mug, share the inspiration and tag us on Instagram at tranquil_mentor, or visit us on Facebook at TranquilMentor. Keep in mind, if you're feeling a little down or overwhelmed, do some crafting and DIYing. It can really help to reduce some anxiety and give you an outlet. Be kind to yourself and make something great. If you're looking for deeper support, we also have some journals linked below that can help keep you on track with your behavioral health and well-being. Thank you for being here. Like, comment, and subscribe for more tranquil creativity and heart-centered healing. We'll see you in the next one.